Good afternoon. I just wanted to talk a little bit today about decoupaging papers to larger surfaces, bringing interest to the design in the background. On my pieces here, these are about 8" by 8". And as you see, I have decoupaged papers on the background. This one with the lighthouse and the verbiage was already on the paper. And then I painted the lighthouse and the sailboat down here. This particular one, the background is just like a stone kind of pattern to it. So then I painted the lighthouse. The lighthouse has a little bit of texture to it too from gesso. And then I stamped snowflakes on there. These pieces I'm showing you right now, the papers in the background used are available through Pat Rawlinson's site. Here we have the butterfly was already on the paper and the daffodil. I added the barn and then stamped these butterflies. And on each of these also, I have added for embellishment little doorknobs, door pulls from Hobby Lobby. And our last one. This one has a weathered look background to it. This is also a paper. This is a scrapbook piece of paper. And we have leaves, which are stenciled, and then I painted the barn scene. So when I started out, like this particular piece has not been painted on yet, I went to, I really like going to Hobby Lobby. They have such a variety. And right now we're going to be working with this paper that I found. And as you see, this patriotic one is on this piece. And then the snowflakes, but it's just scrapbook paper purchased at Hobby Lobby. And then what I do with my pieces is I multi-purpose seal them. This is MDF, multi-purpose seal. And then I take the piece of paper that I have chose and trace out with a pencil all around the piece and then cut the piece out, which is what I've already done with these pieces here. I already have the pieces cut out. This one here, these are just little ornaments. I have the pieces cut out here. And then just to show you on these smaller pieces too, the tag. This here is actually dictionary paper. This is wrapping paper, also purchased at Hobby Lobby. Same print. This particular one is wrapping paper found in the dollar area at Target. So you just don't have to use scrapbook paper. You can also use wrapping paper. So the first thing, as I said, I multi-purpose my piece, sand it, and then I trace rather, the surface shape out, cut it out with scissors. Then the next thing we want to do is, just in case my piece doesn't totally cover the surface area, I go ahead and I pick out a color from the background that would match, just in case there's an area that is too short. Okay, so I base coat that twice. Then the next thing I want to do is get out I prefer to use the matte decoupage. Oops, okay. Now you can put some of this out on your palette. We're not going to have this open for very long, so I'm just going to go ahead and use it straight from the jar here. I'm using a glazed wash brush, and I'm going to pull out, brush on, and then pull out brush stroke marks. You want to take that right to the edge so that your edge seals the paper to it. Okay, I'll set my brush aside. And the next thing I want to do is the piece that I am going to put on there. This is scrapbook paper. I'm going to lightly mist it with water because once paper touches anything that is liquid, it tends to start to grow a bit. So this will start that process. We're going to lay that down, meet our corners down here, and then walk it up. So lightly misting the paper also helps with, we hope, the ridges that you would end up with on the paper here. You want to smooth those out, and misting it with water first does help that. You can also go ahead and use a brayer. And then we're going to want to let that dry. But as you see, even though I had this paper cut right to size, like this one is right to the shape, we do have a little bit of overage here. Okay. But sometimes when you get that paper laid down, you can end up by having it too short. That's why I use that background color. It is really, I don't see that on any of these, but let's see on this one. His hat is also scrapbook paper. And then I went ahead and did some shading to bring some character to the hat. Here's some highlighting. But see, once you've got that paper down, then you can go ahead and paint something on top, like the pieces I showed you at the beginning here. All right, we are going to set this piece aside. Now we want to do something about getting rid of that excess paper there. So we would use what I have is a file that I picked up at the store. They come in a package like this, and I will soon be having these on my website. But when they are able to be purchased, there is no choice as far as to what the pattern would be. As you see that there, I have no say in what I find at the store. The one thing I want to make sure though is that I am using Diamond brand because one time I bought this off brand, not Diamond, and do you see how it's just so very, very flimsy? All right, so we're going to use one of these to demonstrate. See, this is the one we just did the decoupage on, which I need to cover my jar here. This one is already dry. Now I'm going to come in here, and if the paper were way too large, then I could come in with little scissors and trim if your paper was really over the edge, okay? But I'm pretty close, so what we're going to do is we're just going to sand. And I really like using the file, and you want to sand that away from you. And not back and forth, because otherwise you're going to lift that paper up off the surface. So we just continue around here. And as I said, I'm sanding on an angle. And this way we have nice, clean, smooth edge here. So we just continue that all the way around. It's a little bit of a mess. But it's worth it in the end. Have it nice, smooth. Okay. There. Oops, I got a little bit over here yet. And that just all comes right off then. Okay. Right. Wipe that off. Now, we do have the area here. You see my little scissors here, where the tag is. So we'll just open that up. And Then after we put our top coat on of the Mod Podge, the Decou-page, we will go ahead and clean that up. Let me get some of this off of here. Okay. Open up our Decou-page. Okay, now we want to put a coat on top. And I always go around and I check my edges to make sure that the paper is all sealed, or if there was possibly somewhere that I needed to tuck a little bit of decoupage. Very similar to when you nail polish your fingernails. You want to kind of go over your edge a little so that your fingernail polish doesn't chip. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm going over the edge a little. Pull out my brush stroke marks. And then we will set that aside to dry. Okay. All right, so just to go over those basic steps one more time. And then once that dries, you're able to paint anything like I did at the beginning that I showed you on these pieces. Because it is matte, you have tooth from the matte that then you can come in and paint or do any stamping or stenciling on there. So you just don't have to have the pieces with just putting the paper on. It'll give you some background interest. Okay, so just one more time. We have our decoupage. Excuse me. I chose this background color just in case my edges do not meet. We'll put on, kind of brush out our brush stroke marks. Set this aside. And as I said, because of the paper starting to, if you want to say, grow as it touches it touches into a wet medium, I lightly mist it with just clean water. I'm going to lay the piece into the decoupage. This will also help that you don't end up with so many bubbles and ridges. You don't have a brayer, you could also use a credit card. These smaller pieces work pretty good just with your finger. Ordered close to the edge so that our edge will seal. And once again, as you see, we have a little bit here that we'll be sanding off. Okay, that'll be set aside to dry. And then once it is dry, we go back to doing the sanding. Remember, we have the files that become available on my website, debbiestouch.com. There is nothing I can do about the pattern. You want to use these that you're, the file that you're sanding away from you on an angle. This is a piece that I already had prepped. This is not the same one that I just put the decoupage on. Okay, so you would continue around that, getting off the excess paper. And so on. We would just continue all around that. Okay. Once your piece is ready, we would come back and apply a coat of decoupage on top of your paper, taking it right to the edge. So we have that paper sealed to the surface. And there we go. Set that aside to dry. All right. And that's our little demonstration for today. I just wanted to show you that we don't have to just decoupage small pieces, that they can also be larger ones. Like this. Makes it kind of fun, different, and an interesting background. I really liked this one that had already the lighthouse in the printed paper. And then I painted a lighthouse. Once again, that particular paper is available from Pat Rawlinson. Well, it was great getting a chance to play around and demo for you today. We will see you next time.